Rachel here from Beads by Rachel. So I'm bringing you this week's live tutorial, which is Kumihimo with a difference. So I'll show you some of the samples of what we're going to be making, and I'll talk you through each stage. Now, this Kumihimo is a Kumihimo with a slight difference, in the sense that normally you have a full band of Kumihimo, but this time you've got a part band. So I'm going to be demonstrating this element of the Kumihimo first of all. Like I say, normally you do a full band of Kumihimo, and where these elements are here is normally you have a clasp, but I thought it's a really productive way, this particular design I've done, in perhaps using threads where you've only got shorter lengths. Also, you've got a stretch element to it as well. It's a good way of using up odds and ends beads. So I'm going to be showing you what you can do with the little scraps. So this is the other bracelet that I've done, a nice shocking pink. I'm going to show you at the end is using your scraps just to make some cute little tassels. I was just trying to think of the word. On this one, I've popped a little clip so that you could either pop it on the side of your bracelet. You could even use it as a crochet or a stitch marker. You could even have it as a fancy pair of earrings. But it's just one way of not binning bits and pieces that we've got. This one is made with leather, so it's a nice sort of unisex bracelet as well. And I've got lots of different stages planned, so we may be switching from colour to colour, but it's just so that I can save time. Before we get going, let me talk you through materials. So you need a board. I'm going to actually demonstrate on a 1mm thick cotton cord. These are rattail, that's 1mm, 1.5mm thick, that's 1mm thick, which is why the ends, the glue ends are different, the relevant ends. You need a selection of beads to go with it. You need nail varnish, 0.5 elastic so it goes through the beads twice, some cotton to bind the ends, but it'll all become clear. So measurements, I've cut a length of 2-meter thread. I'm going to bring the ends together and I'm going to cut it into quarters. So effectively, what's that, 1/2 meter each, isn't it? Bring the ends together again and cut again. So I have 4 lengths of 1/2 meter. I'm going to bring all of the ends together. So these are the ends together. There's the middle. So you're halving those again. And I'm going to pop a little tag tie. You could use wool or wire, but I just find these really easy. That's to bind all of the threads together to begin with. Hopefully you can all see that. Now on this board, you've got 4 dots. Okay, remember the 4 dots because those are guidelines. So I'm going to pop that in the middle. I'm going to hold it with my fingers at the back. I'm going to get one thread and pop it to one side of that dot, and I'm going to get the other part of that thread, which is sometimes easier said than done, and I'm going to hook that at a diagonal. So I've got one that side, one down here at that side. Then I'm going to do the same again with another cord. I'm going to find its other half and attach it. And then I'm going to grab another one and pop it at one of the other dots. So you are doing these at diagonals. So that goes at the top of that one and that goes at the bottom of that dot. So It comprises of 3 moves. Top right, lift that off and go to bottom right and hook it in. Bottom left, bring it up and go to the top left. That's your second move, and your third move is you go to the next dot and you do an anti-clockwise turn. Okay, again, top right to bottom right, bottom left to top left, quarter turn, top right to bottom right, bottom left to top left, quarter turn. Now notice how you're not on the dots anymore. The dots are only there when you start. I'm going to carry on and give you a few tips along the way. Now, if you're going to have a cup of coffee and a chat, top tip, either put a little hook in so that you know that's your next move, or bring it down so that you know where there's 3, the next move is up, because it's quite easy to forget where you are. Now, as you probably gathered, I am not going to show you the whole bracelet, but I want to do at least enough to show you how it grows in the centre and how you go about pulling the tension at the bottom. Now, the other way you can tell what your last move was, if you get sidetracked, if you run your fingers along it, you've got 2 threads that are risen at the top. The ones at the top are the ones that you've just worked. The ones underneath are the ones that you worked previously. So that's the other way that you can do it. I'm just going to do a few more. Let's leave it at that. So let's turn it over. Okay, so it's grown quite quickly. What I tend to do, it stretches, is pinch it in the middle and pull. Now, it's really important that you do stretch them, because otherwise they're not going to fit into the ends that you've got. So let's just do a little bit more. Okay, so see how quickly that works. Now, this is one I've made fully. Obviously, you make it as, it depends on the wrist size and how much you want to have beaded. That element is about 4.5 inches in braid. Now, the next bit I've already done, and I want to show you how you tie off. Okay, so say you've done the length you need, you've given it a good stretch out. We're going to tie it off first. So I'm going to pick the threads, opposite threads at diagonals from underneath. So you feel the ones that are on the top and you go underneath. Now I'm going to just tie the temporary knot, because I only need to do one overhand knot on this one because it's quite stable. And then you can take it off your board. Okay. The good thing in tying the knot is it's not going to all unravel. So just pull that through and that's all ready to go. Obviously, you're not going to want all of this excess. So it's great if you've got sewing cotton that matches, that's even better, because you won't be able to see it. It probably wasn't a good idea for me. Let me do a different colour so that you can see me binding it. So I would just tie just below and just simply wrap it round. I don't know how many times, 5 to 8. And then I'm going to tie it in a knot. like that. All right, so that's all I've done, and that is so that I can cut this end bit off without it unraveling. So I would then undo that knot. If you can, just unravel some of this kumihimo. So trim, give it a bit of a haircut. Now it's really important that you don't have too much bulk on the ends, because otherwise, again, you're not going to get your glue ends. That end, we've taken the tag tie out. That end, we've banged. So these are 6mm glue ends, and you can just test that they go on like so. Okay, now I would recommend, you see how well used mine is, E6000 glue. I get the cocktail stick, pop my glue on it, and inside the cocktail stick is circulator inside. Now the good thing is with the E6000 is if you get too much excess, you can, when it dries, it just pulls off, and pop that in there. And then you do the same the other side. Okay, so there you've got your glue in ends. So let's just go back to another part. So that's where we're at. So we've got the glue in ends, and we've just got the beaded element to do. Now I'm going to switch over to one I glued earlier. So it's 0.5 elastic, and we're going to pop the elastic through one of the holes and then bring both ends together. Now the reason why I've used such fine elastic is because it's much easier to do this double. So just do your element of stringing, of stretch. Now in terms of sizing, it may be a little bit of a juggle, but the good thing is, at least with it being elasticated, but I would say probably best to test it round your wrist. But do tell me in the comments if you've done Kumihimo, what type of Kumihimo have you done? Has this given you any inspiration to try something a little different? Do you know this? The other thing this is really good for is if you've made a Kumihimo bracelet way too small, it won't go to waste because you just add the elasticated element to it. Okay, so I'm going to separate, so I've got one bead left, and I'm going to separate my elastic. So I'm going to bank one of them at the side. I'm going to add this bead just onto the single elastic. I'm going to go through the end hole, okay, and I'm going to go back through that bead. So just so that you can see what I'm doing, that's my spare thread there. We're working with one piece of elastic. So it's a bit like doing the crimp beads on a necklace. So the same elastic piece goes back up through that bead. Now the reason why I'm not doing it at the end is I think it looks a bit unsightly. So this is what I'm doing, is I'm bringing it together, and you just need to pull on that and tighten that up. Now, gonna need my nail varnish at the ready. So I'm gonna tie both ends in an overhand knot. and then I'm going to tie another knot and keep it taut. And then, it's where you need 20 hands, is I'm then going to paint the knot with nail varnish. It doesn't matter if it gets on your beads a little bit. Keep it stretched for about 30 seconds and then leave it for half an hour. Avoid the temptation to try on. So there we have your Kumihimo bracelet, your glue ends and your stretch element. So we've been through a lot of colours here, haven't we? We've been through a lot of different stages. Right, so we're very nearly there. So just to recap on the last little bit is I'm going to show you how to do these. So they're quite sweet, you know, you could have them on the bottom of a necklace. It's just a way of not throwing things out. So that was what was left from my leather. Okay, so I've bound it up like I did with the end of the bracelet so that it's easier to glue in. Okay, so I'm just going to trim off that bulk. It's great for stitch markers as well. You know, you could make a little set, pop them on a little key ring. Just give myself an idea there. Pop them on a key ring so they've got an adjustable clip so they can come on and off. Okay, gluing end, just put my glue in. To be honest, I think I probably could have gone for the smaller one there. Anyway, you get the gist of it. So the idea is that you pop one of the cord ends on there. You can see that is way too big for that. And then I trim it across as well. And on these, I have put some little clasps on there so they easily clip onto things. But I do hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something new. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget, if you could subscribe to my newsletter if you haven't done already, beadsbythechill.co.uk. A little pop-up box will appear. It will give you a discount as well off a purchase, and it just keeps you up to date with everything. Bye!